Alrighty, folks, you've heard it from all the gurus. Rental properties in 2026 don't work. You need to stop. You need to do something else. Perhaps start a business, become a social media expert, or maybe start a golf mastermind because, again, real estate rentals don't work. We're going to have this conversation with small and mighty investor creator Chad Carson. How you doing, Coach?
It's good to be here, Michael. Wow, I haven't heard that news, but that'll be fun to talk about.
Well, again, if you believe YouTube's algorithm, which maybe I'm just in this doom loop, all the gurus are quitting rental properties. They're all giving up. It's too hard. And, real estate just doesn't work anymore. And I thought I'd come to you and say, what do you think? What's going on?
Well, all I know is the people in my world, my community, my own real estate business, I'm too busy operating my rentals and buying new rentals and building new rentals to hear all that stuff. So I guess awesome. that tells you my answers. I've got my nose to the grindstone, and personally, I'm in a my kind of stage is starter, builder, harvester. I'm in the harvester stage of real estate investing, so I'm not out there grinding trying to do a bunch of deals. But I'm finding ways to make deals happen, and I'm finding ways to make deals work. It is a different market. The fundamentals have changed in some ways compared to the past. But my thought is, as a real estate investor, I've always been, I know you and I resonate on this a lot, is we are long-term investors. We're buy and hold investors. And so the only question for me is the next 10 to 20 years a good time to own real estate? And if that's the case, which I think it is, in most places that you go to, there's some ups and downs and some things to worry about. But if that's the case, then the only question is, how do I buy properties today? Not whether I should or shouldn't. It's just things always change. They the 1980s it was different, 1970s it was different, the 1930s and 40s it was different. Like if you study history, there's always reasons why it's harder to invest in a certain time period. But if you believe that the next 20 to 30 years the real estate's going to do well, then you owe it to yourself to figure out how do you buy it, not saying you shouldn't buy it.
Yeah, it's really interesting to have this conversation because, again, you and I are in what you call the harvesting stage, right? We're still making moves, but a lot slower, more intentional than we were the first couple of decades. And some people look at that as signs that it doesn't work. And I'm like, no, we've won the game. Sometimes you got to stop playing the game once you've won. And, Ken McElroy, somebody I follow on X, for example, has gone on the record the last couple of days saying that 2026 is either A, going to make millionaires, or B, is going to wipe people out. And this is what I mean by when you win the game, sometimes stop playing. There are people that just kept doing syndications because rates were so low and raising money was so easy, that are now financially ruined. And guys like me and Ken and whatnot, we didn't make any moves when prices were going crazy. In fact, we were net sellers, not net buyers. But to your point, something I am personally doing, and I've shared with my audience, Olivia and I are raising over 7 figures in cash from several different vehicles because we plan to make some moves into this environment because I've been here before. Some people are going to have to sell. They're going to need liquidity, and I'm just going to get a great deal. So again, I think 2026 is going to be an amazing year because it's going to be finally the time that banks stop extending and pretending. And some of these idiots who overpaid with short-term debt are going to have to lick their wounds. And I want to be there to pick up the pieces.
Yeah, 100%. And I think what that gets at is the fundamentals of what it means to be an investor. An investor, I go back to like Warren Buffett kind of ideas. Like we buy value. Like Warren Buffett is always looking for a deal. He'll sit on his hands, but then he'll stroke a check for 15 billion to buy a company, right? So it's like, I think we should always be buyers, always. But as you and I talk about, you have a buy box, you have criteria, you know what it means to have a good deal. You don't just buy anything. You have to buy value, and it takes some work to find value. Like I think that's the difference between 2026 and 2020 and 2022 is like there's some deals that just fell in people's laps. Like you had a 4% interest rate and you could buy a property retail, or do a bird deal and buy it at 20-30% below the value, and it always cash flowed, and that was pretty easy. Like that was unusual. Like that is not the normal environment for real estate investors. Real estate investing is an entrepreneurial venture.
Yeah.
And you have to invest time in deal finding. You have to invest time in deal making. You have to understand what buy boxes are and study your market. All the doing the work, all the stuff that you talk about.
Yeah.
That's the cost of entry. And if you don't want to do that, that's cool. Like there's other ways. Just buy an index fund, own the
Yeah.
entire world's stock market. There's ways to make money not doing this, but real estate is great because of the fact that it's entrepreneurial on the front end, but then it can turn into a passive vehicle over the long run. But if you're not ready to buy directly to buy real estate, you have to do the work. And even if you do syndications, I think this is what a lot of people who bought syndications didn't learn is like those are not passive either. Like you have to do a lot of front end work, vetting the people, vetting the deal. I'm not good at that. Like that's not my thing. I like to vet
Mhm.
the property and the property manager and all that. I think that's easier, more intuitive to do. So I think the secret, the quote secret was so you can do passive investing and all that. That it's never been that. Real estate's always been an entrepreneurial venture. And so it's back to that again, where you have to work hard to find deals in 2026. And that's the way it should be. That's the way it's always been.
Yeah, 2026, I'm terming it the year of the operator or the grinder,
Hmm.
which is really it's our people, right? We do the work, we have a buy box, we write offers, it's all the non-sexy in the mud, in the dirt work that produces the great assets. And it's funny you brought this up because I agree with you. Like if you were winning in 2020 and 2021, especially if you were new, you only know that environment. And yes, prices went up crazy, debt was cheap. And if you grew up and that was your experience, yeah, 2025 and 2024 sucked. It was a depression. Transactions crashed by 40%. And what we've learned, or at least what I learned from Ryan and Brian, is 80% of wholesalers are out of the business. 80, to which I say, good. We have 50% less real estate agents. Good. 60% less mortgage brokers. Good. Why is that good? Because that means the grinders and the operators are left. And those folks that are left are going to eat like they're at a buffet. Because what's going to happen in 26 is the pie is going to get bigger by 10%, in my opinion, transactions. And then if you have a slightly bigger pie, but you have half as many people, everybody's going to eat more. And I want investors to realize that. This is the year of grinding, of focus, of offers, of follow-up, creative financing, firsts and seconds and 50, 40, 10s and, house hacks and all of this stuff. It's finally our turn because some sellers are going to want to sell and move on. They didn't sell in 25. They took it off. They're coming back. They're 4% below list price already and likely to take more. I am more excited about 2026. And again, and I'm not raising $1 million because I enjoy paying interest. I'm raising $1 million that I plan to triple or quadruple the return on that capital. That's what's coming in 26.
Yep. Yeah. And I think that confidence you have comes from your operations. So just to double click on that, to go borrow $1 million or to raise $1 million or to raise multiple millions, it's the fact that if I get this property, I can operate it. I can make something happen. I have a plan A, plan B, plan C, plan
Yes.
D. Like you can't just go into anything and have a plan A and you'll get tossed around by the market.
Yep.
I'll give you a quick story. Like I started in 2003 as an investor. You and I started around the same time.
Yeah.
And then in 2000, I grew. And I made a bunch of mistakes in 2005, 6, and 7, but I grew a ton in 2007. And the saving grace for me, the thing that allowed me to survive, because I made a ton of mistakes and could have, had some good luck along the way too. The two things I did that were kind of operation based that got me through 2007, 8, and 9. Number one, I had a lot of cash reserves. It was not very sexy, but just like disciplining yourself to spend less than what you make. The house, I flipped houses. I made, big 6-figure checks and these kind of things, flipping houses, all went in the bank. I still lived like a college kid for those years.
Nice.
Put it in the bank. I needed it though, because I dug into those reserves for the next 2 or 3 years, because up and down cash flow. And the other thing I did was I focused on the nitty gritty of being a property manager, of being just doing all the little
An
operational
operator.
stuff,
Yes.
systems and processes, and just being good at. I screwed up leasing. I rented to a lot of tenants who weren't creditworthy, and I had to take those properties back. And I learned how to manage remodel projects, as I screwed up a bunch of projects. So it's the detail. In my community, I talk a lot about there's 3 main operational pieces. There's acquisitions, there's financing, and then there's rental management. And there, in every one of those, you can be an expert or like a core operator in one of those 3. Like wholesalers typically are the deal finders. They're out finding deals. But people who are really good at financing, if you have a bunch of capital, if you're really good at financing, you could find a deal finder who could put the deal together, and they can sell it to you. Or if you're a really good property manager, like if I were in California, you drop me into a high price market right now, and I've talked to some of my community members who do this. Like if I were a really good operator, like a property manager type, really good at systems and leasing and all that, I would go out and try to master lease properties or lease option properties or use creative financing, because you can basically control $1 million asset or $2 million asset that maybe doesn't work with getting a 20% down payment and getting a regular debt. But because you are able to solve the management problem for people, there's all sorts of creative financing options, even if you don't have the capital, that open themselves up to you. And the point
Yeah.
of all that is like you go with the strength. You got to figure out what your strength is and what you're good at and what your skills are. And then the rest of the business will sort of open itself up to you because you've gotten really good at those nitty-gritty operational details.
Yeah, I'm curious because again, you started in 03, we started in 01, basically the same time. And I've said this a few times, but you're one of the few guys that can agree or disagree because you were there as well. I see 22 and 23, or maybe it's 21 and 22, right? Those crazy years. Very much like 04 and 05. I remember people in my network in 04 and 05, 2004, 2005, saying things like housing never goes down, right? There was this mantra going on back there that housing never went down. And for a couple of years, they were right. And that's what led to riskier and riskier loan products, because the system started to believe that housing never went down. And thus, I see 21 and 22 very similar. Why do I say that? Because what I saw in 04 and 05 and 21 and 22 is all of the grifters, the pretenders, the get rich quick shenanigans. They all flew off the sidelines because it was a target rich environment and money was just flying around. And the reason I bring this up is if you ask me my 4 hardest years as an investor, because I'm only a grinder, I don't play in that space. I don't play in the hot money. 04 and 05 and 21 and 22. Those were my hardest years.
Yeah.
Right. To find great deals. What do you think?
Yeah, that makes total sense. I think you've taught me this in a lot of the lessons you talk about the economy, that 21, 22, there's different ways of looking at recession, quote recessions. And it was what do you call it? A transaction recession almost. Like there's just the transactions fell off a cliff.
Yep.
And that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I think the years leading up to that were the harder years. Like so when the transactions went down, that was when people like us got back in. Whereas when things were hot and everybody was interested in it, those
you
are
couldn't
hard,
play.
hard to
It was
find.
like
It's hard to find the good deals. Yeah, 100%.
No, I love that. And again, the last thing I'll say about this is at the end of the day, as an investor, do you want more or less competition, Chad?
Yeah, I want less.
Exactly. We want less competition. We want, there was a time in 21 where if you didn't make a decision in 15 seconds, somebody else bought the deal.
Yeah.
Right. It was that quick moving. So again, I want less competition. I want more time. I want more motivated sellers. And again, the other thing I believe, and I'm sure you do too, you make your money when you buy, not when you sell. I think a lot of people look at this like, oh, I made the money when I sold. No, you recognized the money when you sold, but you made it when you buy, correct?
Yeah, you write the check when you buy the property, you cash it when you sell, right?
Exactly. Oh, I like that.
But the money's not there unless you buy it right. And this makes me think this might be a good way to kind of think about this whole topic, kind of big picture is I think to get this kind of mindset, part of it's just hanging out with people and following people who have long-term mindsets like you do and like I do, hopefully, is that the more you listen to people who are all in or all out or on this trend or that trend, it wears me out. Like it doesn't work for me. And I mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, I just have my eyes focused, my lane. I'm focusing. I'm helping people. We're too busy doing the work to worry about all that stuff. And yes, I worry about the economy and things have changed. I do pay attention to that stuff, but I'm in the game. I'm an operator. I'm in it for the long haul. And for those listening to this or watching it, you got to be really careful. You got to filter through the people who you emulate, the people you look up to. And I think one of the filters you should look for is how long-term their thinking is.
Yeah.
And not only like how far forward are they thinking, but also how far backwards are they thinking? Are they studying the history of their business? Do they have some longevity? Are they doing strategies that are timeless instead of these fly by night kind of things?
Yeah.
Because I don't you've been getting this a lot. People be like, oh, the small and mighty investor thing's kind of coming back around, or the one rental at a time thing's coming back
Yeah.
around. It's like no, it never left.
It never
Like,
left. Yeah.
it's always been here. Sorry,
We were
but
just drowned it out by shenanigans. Yes.
exactly. So I think that my point is like, pay attention to the people who have a little bit more calm confidence, long-term
Yeah.
horizon, tried and true, less of the fancy shiny techniques and more of like the fundamentals. That stuff's not as sexy, but man, that's the
Yeah.
people you wanna gravitate to and try to emulate if you can.
Well, one thing I will put money on, and I would put significant money on, is our communities, small and mighty, and one rental at a time, are going to have an amazing 2026 because you and I are
Agreed.
consistent, and
Agreed.
we do what we say we do, and you keep writing offers, get a buy box, be focused, daily discipline, all the stuff that it hasn't changed.
Yep.
And that's what's funny. I mean, I went back recently and watched some of my first 100 videos, which is a long time ago, right? Because I've done 17,000 videos.
That's painful to do sometimes, Michael. I've tried.
Yes.
I can't do it. It hurts me to
It
watch
hurts.
mine. Yours are a lot
It
better
hurts.
than mine.
No, they were not better, but the stories and the consistency are the same. The other thing I love about you and I is, yeah, we tell the same stories all the time because they're the truth. We don't have to think about it.
Yep.
Right. So again, telling the truth over and over is valuable. So, Coach, you are amazing. Thank you for being here monthly. Your book, Small and Mighty Investors, is a must read if people don't have it. Where can they find you?
If you look on Amazon, you can find the book on Bigger Pockets as well. And if you just want to hang out with me, I have a new episode that comes out every Monday on YouTube. So just look for Coach Carson on your podcast platform or on YouTube, and I would leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you.
All right, buddy. Thank you very much. Take care.
Thanks, Michael.